Hello, everybody. This is Bill Plock with Colorado's Ride, and I'm here with Tracey Jacobs, who's doing some coaching plans for our riders coming up this year, but also part of the cycling summit that we're going to have on April 17th down in Denver to bring up some really great topics about how to get ready for a successful cycling season in the mountains, but anywhere really. But we're specifically talking about mountains. But welcome to our chat today, Tracey.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to
How-
be here.
yeah, tell us a little bit about your background, but without talking about all your racing right just yet. Tell us why you love riding bikes and how you grew up and why cycling is such a great thing for you.
Oh yeah. Well, I love being outdoors and it's so nice to see the world on a bike. And it's fast enough but slow enough. You can get a lot, whereas if you're hiking, it's slow, but if you're riding a bike, you can see a lot and you're connected with nature and I love that. And yeah, I love being in the mountains. I love the undulating terrains. I mean, even the mix of like being on the flats and the flatlands and being in the mountains, I love it all. Um, and I like the wind on my cheeks and it's really nice. And it's nice to ride with other people. I like that part of it too, that you can, share that experience with other people. Um, and it's great exercise. It's low impact. And so a lot of people end up, using cycling as exercise because, running or and that sort of thing could be hard on the joints as you age. So it's a really nice way to be able to get out in nature and be in the world and see the world without a lot of wear and tear on the body and get a lot of exercise and stay healthy.
Well, we before we started recording, you noticed my spider jacket here, and you mentioned that that was your family's business, which I thought was
Yeah.
really cool. But so you
Yeah.
kind of grew up in the ski family, but how did you discover cycling specifically, and how did you become such a successful racer, and what was your career path in cycling?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I do come from a big ski family and I grew up on skis from when I was two. Like everybody in our family, that's what we did every weekend on the hill. And it's sort of nostalgic when I go skiing because I often remember skiing with my parents and that sort of thing and my brothers and sister. Um, so yeah, I mean I think that a lot of ski racers my family, everyone in my family, my dad, my brothers, my sister, they all bike raced actually eventually because, a lot of cross training for skiing in the summer is cycling for
Yeah.
fitness and now especially mountain biking more specifically because it's more, closer to skiing because it's more downhill and single tracky and that sort of thing. But for fitness and also a lot of ski racers get torn ACL, so then you end up on the bike training and get rehabbing. So it's funny, there's a lot of connection between skiing and cycling. And then my dad we started Spider Ski Clothing, but then my dad also brought Pearl Izumi to the United States. He was working with a factory in Hong Kong and he was there and they're like, oh, check out these Lycra shorts. And before that, there was no Lycra. It was all wool.
Okay.
So he brought the first Lycra Pearl Izumi shorts to the United States, and he had the hot gear, cool gear team. Oh, I should bring the jersey. It's in the other room. But they were all there are famous people like you know Bob Cook and Davis Finney, and they were all younger, but they were on the cool gear team.
Mhm.
So my dad, he sponsored that team. And so, he'd make me Zep bags for the races and, all the stuff. But so I was kind of around it as a kid. I was around ski racing, I was around cycling. And then my sister and I are really close, we're twins, and she was ski racing and then training a lot on the bike. And so when I would come visit her from college here in Colorado, because I went to college out of state, um, she'd be like, "Oh, let's go on this ride." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to ride my bike." You
Mhm.
know. And so she kind of, I was just around it was just around. It was like part of the culture that I was in. And then later in my life, when I was like 34, my first husband thought I would be good at bike racing, and he really wanted me to bike race. And so he got me a coach and I tried it and I was like, well, I kind of did really well at it, but probably because of my athletic background with skiing
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. I was not ever an endurance athlete. That wasn't my thing. I didn't have this huge VO2, but I had a lot of technical skill and I wasn't afraid to be an athlete, as a woman. And so it was there was it was I accelerated and progressed really quickly. Probably should have done that as a first career bike racing, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I just kind of got into it because I was doing well and I was like, oh, this is cool. This feels good. And then I always wanted to keep up with him and we would do all the local group rides. And so I just, back in the day, you just went and rode with people and you learned. You learned how to ride in a group and you learned the etiquette and all these different things and you just did it. Nowadays it's a little bit different for people getting into cycling, but
Well, and you're in Boulder. I mean, gosh, there was just by being in that area with all those people that just train there all the time. I'm sure you've ridden with a lot of names that everybody would know, and it's
yeah.
pretty cool. I mean, just by osmosis, you probably got better just by hanging out with those people that were pushing you.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. And I mean, I always rode with the guys because I was riding with my husband at the time and it was just always guys. And then when you're racing, a lot of the women will train with the guys because it's just harder. Men are just bigger, stronger, faster, generally speaking. So so it's yeah, and the group rides were really big actually in Boulder. Since COVID, things kind of changed a little bit, but it's coming back. But people are starting to ride in groups more and that sort of thing. And racing is coming back and all the stuff. But yeah, back in the day, I mean, there'd be like 60 people on a ride. If I could last for 20 minutes with those guys, it was great. And then I learned that I had to be in the front
Yeah,
and get absorbed to the back and then get back to the front. So you
yeah.
just kind of learn, like, just because you want to survive, you don't want to be riding alone the whole time. But, went from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Like, could I last? And then could I regroup and get back in? So it was just, I don't know. It was fun.
So needless to say, you have lots of experience in riding bikes and racing and just being outside. And you approached us about working with us at Colorado's Ride, and then we came up with the summit idea that we're going to do in a couple weeks. And
Mhm.
this is about helping people in coaching that how you gravitated into that world and what you love about that.
Yeah. I think it's a natural progression to go from like, I've reached all my goals as a bike racer and it's like 20 years of experience and I feel like I want to give that back. I don't want to take that to the grave with me. I want to share that because it's the best way to pass it on to the next generation or the people that want it or need it. So I love that's my give back is to coach and I actually really do like coaching a lot. I love coaching. It's a lot of fun to help people reach their goals and to expand their capacity. They don't even know what they're capable of. And so I love being that mediator who can help them, you know, get past their own barriers in their mind and in their body. And I just really understand it because I have gone through that process myself from being not an endurance athlete to like a world champion and national champion in lots of different events. So I understand what it takes. And I am not the athlete that had, like I said before, a big engine. So it came down to work ethic and learning how to race and learning and training and consistency and all these other things. That being said, you don't have to be a racer to enjoy, figuring out what you're made of. I mean, I work with a lot of athletes that are not racers. They just want accountability, they want to progress, they want a PR, they want they just want fitness. And then people don't know they can't invent it themselves. I mean, they could, but it's much more efficient to have someone in the know that can say, okay, let's do this.
So let's talk about folks that might be listening to this or watching it and who are thinking about, they're just I would call them an average cyclist. Maybe they're from Kansas and they really haven't ridden in the mountains, but they ride a fair number of miles a week. Maybe they ride 50 to 100 miles a week just normally, and they might need to ramp up a little bit for something like the triple bypass or the Colorado's ride or Copper Triangle, you name it. Where do you start with somebody to kind of evaluate where they're at and how do you set a goal for somebody like that that's not really a time thing, it's just they want to finish strong.
Yeah. Um, well, I think, you don't have to live in the mountains to train to to ride in the mountains and have your best day. I think more is just a matter of consistency and volume and then building the engine. So I do work with a lot of athletes that aren't necessarily in Colorado, that aren't at a high altitude. And you can build the engine wherever you are in the world. And thank God we have Zwift and these online platforms where you can actually do really efficient training. You can simulate hills and stuff like that. And there's a lot of platforms now. It's not just Zwift, but My Whoosh and all kinds of different things. Training Peaks has their own virtual setup too. So those modern tools can be really helpful. But when I like if I was going to work with anyone, like, you know, whoever who wanted to come do Colorado's ride, I mean, there are some factors to consider. It's the distance day after day after day. So that's one thing.
Right.
The cumulative load over a certain amount of days. And so you have to acclimate for that because you are sitting in the saddle for a long time. So that's the body position, the conditioning, and then just the engine, your cardiovascular, like having to work and recover and work and recover. Even if you're doing it at a moderate pace, it's still load, it's still fatigue building.
Mhm.
So pacing that out with a person. And then of course there's also like climbing and that sort of thing. But we can do a lot of training with that with, low cadence, high cadence, different things. And you can do that on flatland. And then of course there's the altitude and that is definitely a factor. People coming from places like Kansas City or, Iowa, and they're going to come and they want to do Colorado's ride. I mean, you do have to consider altitude. And so how do you prepare for that? Some of that is nutrition, like hydration
Mhm.
and all that kind of thing, but also, just acclimating and so there is going to be they are going to feel that when they get here. But I think building the engine before coming here, like if people can't come here beforehand or go to a higher altitude beforehand and get some acclimatization, then, when they get here, they're going to feel that. And so we can prepare, with resting and also building your cardiovascular engine to be able to handle that a little bit more smooth.
And then also like what we talked about, we're putting together this agenda for the summit where you can really dial into some specific bike handling skills, some climbing technique, maybe when to stand or when not to stand, or how to like descend and where to put your feet, and do you squeeze the top tube with your legs to keep you bound? I mean, all these things that you hear about in group rides, and I'm excited for you to share some of the nuances of that deeper process that most people don't think about. Or how to
Yeah.
grab a water bottle out of your water, out of the bike safely. Or do you do that at all when you're going downhill? Is that too dangerous? Or how do you shift? And what's the best, how much up and down the back sprockets are we going? And where's that right cadence and all those little things?
Oh, you're speaking my wheelhouse right now. Like I am an absolute technician and all of these things can be taught. As a matter of fact, there's a girl that races on the team that I'm captaining right now, and she's amazing. And she did not know how to drink. And she would get in these races and she would just be parched. And I'm like, we rode together, and I'm like, okay, look straight, hand, pull the water bottle out, take a sip, water bottle in. And how do
Yeah.
you put your water bottle in? You go with the edge and then you force it down and you keep your arm straight and you put your weight here. And, you can break this down to technique. Um, but working with people virtually, sometimes I use Zoom. So like if people really need, like if I'm working with someone from Kansas and they want to come to this ride and they don't know how to drink, pull their water bottle out. They don't know how to draft off a person. There's a lot of different methods. We can talk on the phone. We can do a Zoom session where I can see them and they can see me, and we can go through some techniques. And then people that are more local or that, whatever, we can ride together. And a lot of this stuff, can happen in a conversation and then they can go out and practice and stuff like that. But there is general etiquette when it comes to riding in a group and riding with others. And what I like to say is you can't control others, but you can control yourself. So how do I make myself safe when I'm riding with others? Well, you choose your line.
Mhm.
You are in control of your space. You know your path, even though you're feeling someone's draft. And there's just simple things. When you're in a pack, you don't move side to side. you don't slam on your brakes. I mean, there's just common etiquette. You're moving up and off, or you're just drifting back. Like there's just, and we all know this, but no one ever really talks about it or puts words to it. But when you get into a group, you start to feel that once you know it, and oh yeah, like we're all doing kind of the same thing. Calling things out, how to call things out. But yeah, I can cover all that. Like if I was going to coach someone for this, it would be, and they needed to know that, then that would be part of the training. Is like, let's go through these things.
Well,
Let's
and I
figure
think
out what you don't
I'm
know.
excited. Mental stuff too, like how to settle in for an hour long climb or a 2 hour long climb. Because if you're from Iowa, you mentioned Iowa, it's the longest climb you're going to find is 10 minutes. Then you're heading
Yeah,
down and then you're back up. And that can be hard, don't get me wrong, but there's
yeah.
a big difference than saying 2 hours going up some pass like Coal Creek or Mullis or something like that. I mean, you have to have a different mental outlook on the whole thing.
Oh, for sure. And I think, I mean, a lot of people, if people want to know anything about how to do something on a bike, it's almost always descending and climbing. And
Mhm.
I think it's because when you're climbing, you are under constant torque. You're always under tension because of gravity. And so it's uncomfortable, like all the time. You can't coast.
Right.
You don't, there's no reprieve from the tension. So you kind of, like you said, mindset, you have to get your mind around what you're doing. I mean, you are climbing for a long period of time. And so, yeah, like accept the fact that you're going to be under tension. And so, how do I do that gracefully? How do I use my gears? Where do I put my weight? And also eating and drinking, like that's really important too, because on these long days and back-to-back days, what you drink and what you eat are fueling your body, and your body has to have that. So that is definitely a very important factor, not even for a single day, but especially for multi-day events.
Just
Like
stacks up.
you have like the timing of eating, what you're eating, drinking, and people forget that, the cells need water, every single cell all the time. You're sweating, carbohydrates, you need water to like absorb the carbs. So it's like you can't underestimate that. And that's those simple things, the controllables are the things that people need to learn. And it's really not rocket science. It's just like, oh, yeah, okay, every 15 minutes I need to take a sip of water, or every 20 minutes I need to have a bite of food,
Right.
or and that sort of thing. Or oh, I'm going to be under tension. And that's the other thing with climbing. It's like there's cadence differences that make a difference. Like if your cadence is too low, then there's diminishing returns. If your cadence is too high, then you're wasting energy. So that's all part of structured training, as you learn these things like, oh, and I can see that actually when I'm working with people on training peaks, because I can analyze their data. I can look at their
Oh,
cadence and power and heart rate, and I can be like, oh yeah, that climb, your cadence was 50. No wonder you were worn out after 10 minutes.
yeah.
Because you're like, it's like being in a weight room with like 150 pounds. You can't,
Makes sense.
can't do a lot of reps with too
Right.
much, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, hey, cool. I think hopefully it gives some people a little preview of what's to come on the 17th. And then if they're interested to work with you, then a little bit of how you could help them. And we really appreciate the time to talk and look forward to seeing you in, gosh, 3 weeks, basically.
I know. And you know what? Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't really need to train, or I don't really, but you have to ask yourself, like, if you're coming to do Colorado's ride, like you want to have the most awesome experience you can. And you're riding your bike, so it is kind of fitness. So it's like, okay, you don't have to be professional, you don't have to win the race, you don't have to be the fastest, but you want to feel like you're fit enough to really enjoy that. And there's a lot, you could trim a lot of fat by having structured training or having some training plan.
Mm.
Um, so I mean, I'm happy to help people. I think that, you were asking me earlier about timing with things like getting ready for something like that. And, generally speaking, a 3-month period is kind of minimum. It depends on what your goals are. But cycling is an endurance sport. And so it is accumulative. And so that consistency over time is what builds the engine. And, for something like a multi-day event, it is definitely something that's important, is to like make sure you kind of build that engine. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be professional, but it can really help and like maximize the experience, you know?
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. We're almost out of time. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to all of it. It's going to be great.
Thanks.